on, every communication, apply this filter. I was asked by our dear friends at Startup Grind if I would share some of the secrets of Silicon Valley and some of the lessons that I've learned as an entrepreneur and a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley. So I'm gonna share with you one big secret today, and it's called getting to wow. And before I do that, let me just give you a little bit of context of this. So I started my career in the world of venture as an entrepreneur. Long ago and far away, when I was a grad student at Stanford, I started my first software company. And that was a spectacular success until one day it crashed and burned. So now, you hear people from Silicon Valley, they talk about, celebrating failure, right? And embracing failure. I got to tell you, when we crashed and burned, nobody was celebrating, and nobody was embracing me, right? So, okay, it's a concept, right? But the good thing about Silicon Valley is when you crash and burn, you pick yourself up and you dust yourself off, and then you spin the story a little bit, and then you do it again. And so I had the opportunity to do it again, and at that point, I was able to be involved with a company that went public. So I thought, I got this down. I dived into a third company. We ran that one into a brick wall. But then I did a fourth company. We took that one public. And I said, okay, let's try something different now. And so that's when I got together with Guy Kawasaki and a few other people, and we started Garage. And the big idea of Garage is to be the first venture capital firm that was designed for the benefit of entrepreneurs. That was our big idea. So as entrepreneurs, we did not feel as though the venture capital guys were particularly designed for us. And so we thought, let's do something different. And that meant doing a lot of outreach to entrepreneurs and traveling the world to find emerging technologies and brilliant entrepreneurs wherever they are on the planet. And so that gives me the opportunity to be in wonderful places like Georgia. This is my second time here in Georgia. Thank you for inviting me back. I got to admit, I'm getting hooked. I'm getting hooked on Georgia. It's a pretty delightful place. So with that, let me share with you sort of the big lesson that I've learned from Silicon Valley. And it has to do with the way you tell your story. It has to do with the way you pitch to investors, to customers, to employees. It has to do with the importance of making sure you figure out how to get to wow in all of your interactions. Now, the reason for this is that in our current world, in our information overload, attention deficit disorder world, your reality is you've got 20 seconds to be compelling, or you might as well go home, right? That's our world today. So you don't have, I'm sorry, entrepreneurs, wherever you are, you don't have a minute or 2 minutes or 4 minutes, much less 20 minutes, to get people excited. You've got to figure out how to get them excited in the first 20 seconds. So what's the secret to getting to wow? The secret to getting to wow has to do with human biology. And what I mean by that is what we've learned is that good communicators, good entrepreneurs, connect with 3 body parts. So where's this guy going? So what are the 3 body parts you got to connect with? Okay? First, the brain, okay? Yes, you can reach the brain through the eyes. That's okay. But first, the brain, right? So as when you're pitching someone, what you say has got to make sense. It's got to connect with the way I think the world works. You cannot violate the laws of physics. It's got to be consistent with what I think is the way the world is. So when I was an entrepreneur, we spent 99.8% of our time focused on the brain part, focused on pulling together pitches and gathering evidence and gathering data and putting together 56 PowerPoint slides and burying the investors with data and evidence and proof and testimonials and spreadsheets and forecasts to try to convince them we had a great company. So then, when I became a VC, I had thought, as an entrepreneur, that these VCs were these amazing analytic brains, right? That could listen to all the stuff that entrepreneurs were dumping on them, all of 56 slide decks and all that, right? I thought they had this algorithm in their head, and they could process data in real time, calculate an internal rate of return, and then get the investment decision out, right? That's why they were paid the big bucks. That made sense. So then I became a VC. So as Garage, we got funded by a bunch of the big Sand Hill Road, Silicon Valley VCs, Sequoia and Mayfield and Draper Fisher Jurvetson funded us to find entrepreneurs at the seed stage. So now I'm a VC, sort of backdoor accidental, but now I'm a VC. So I go to my new buddies and I say, hey guys, now I'm one of you. Tell me, what's the algorithm? And they would look at me and they would say, well, you know, we invest in teams. Yeah, we invest in teams. I go, okay, great, but you know, what's the data? What are the analytics? How do you measure the competency of a team? And I said, well, you know, it's kind of pattern recognition. After 5 or 10 years, you'll get the hang of it. And I go, whoa, really? This is the way it works? You know, you're managing billions of dollars on pattern recognition? This is how it works. So I started looking at all of my new VC buddies, and I was watching the way we were making our investments and trying to see, you know, what are the analytics, what's the data, what are the processes that you go through to figure out who to invest in. And I had this epiphany. And this is the dirty little secret. Nobody told me as an entrepreneur that, in fact, VCs do not invest with their brains. VCs invest with their hearts. Now, that sounds crazy, and I know, okay, someone raises their hand and says, wait a second, Bill, I didn't think VCs had a heart. Okay. But believe me, I mean, there are some nice VCs there. Okay, so the point is, what you've got to do as an entrepreneur is not just connect with the brain, you got to get our hearts beating faster. You got to get our pulse racing. You got to get us to say, wow, that's amazing. Wow is not a logical response. Wow is an emotional response. And so what I discovered, the secret of being successful when you're trying to reach out to investors is you got to get them to fall in love. You got to get them to fall in love. What is it that you have in your company that is going to get an investor to fall in love? What is it you have that's going to get an investor to say, wow, that's amazing? You can't just stand in front of the investor and start describing your product and suggesting your financial forecast and your go-to-market strategy and go through your slide deck. You can't just talk at them. You've got to get them to say, wow. You've got to get them to fall in love. So that's the big secret. But now there's a third body part. What is the third body part you got to connect with? The gut. Very good. All right. You got to connect with the gut, right? So, you know, we all know what this is. Right? We all, as human beings, we all have this tendency, as soon as we meet someone, as soon as we hear something, we have an immediate reaction. We know this is the way the human works, is we immediately say, boy, do I trust this person? Do I mistrust this person? Do I believe what they're saying, or do I not believe what they're saying? Do I want to spend time with this person, or do I want to run away, right? And so, as an entrepreneur, you got to pass the gut check. Now, I know most every entrepreneur is actually, you know, well-intentioned and nice, but what happens is, entrepreneurs, you guys are so passionate, so enthusiastic about what you're doing. You're so certain that what you're doing is going to come true. You have this tendency to exaggerate, right? You have a tendency to maybe overstate what is reality. And so we get these entrepreneurs who's, you know, come up to us and say, hey, Bill, we're going to disrupt the $3.5 trillion U.S. healthcare market. And I go, okay, I know you've got a med tech device of some sort. You're not going to disrupt the U.S. healthcare market. So what you got to be careful of as entrepreneurs is you don't blow your credibility out of the block, right? You got to make sure that the first reaction that people have when they meet you is to trust you, to believe you, so that their gut reaction is positive. So those are the three body parts that you've got to connect with. So now, I want to make sure everybody's listening. What is the most important body part? What a team. I love it. Okay. Okay. So you're paying attention. Yes. The secret is you got to figure out how to get them to fall in love. Now, the next part of this presentation is work for you guys. You're going to have to work, okay? I'm not, you can't just sit back and relax. You're going to have to start working. So whether you're an entrepreneur or you're supporting an entrepreneur, here's what I want you to do is figure out what your wow is. And I'm going to offer some ways to figure out how to get to wow for your companies, all right? So, but first I'm going to tell you some ways not to get to wow. So we get all sorts of elevator pitches. We have seen as Garage over 100,000 entrepreneurs over the years. We've listened to tens of thousands of pitches. We've invested in over 150 companies. So you can see it's a relatively narrow funnel that we go through. But typically, what we get when an entrepreneur walks into our office is, something like this. The name has been changed to protect the guilty. But typically, an entrepreneur comes into our office and says something like, Coolco is a dynamic startup company that has developed a revolutionary technology that's going to disrupt our $56 billion industry. Our team has over 45 years of combined experience, and we have 3 patents pending. We project that our curve-jumping, paradigm-shifting technology is going to transform the blah, 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 right? So, yeah, we love the passion, right? We love the enthusiasm, but what else do we got there, right? Not much. The other end of the spectrum, this is a team, they actually came into our office and they actually said this. They came into our office and they said, we use a 2048 Diffie-Hellman key exchange and 256-bit triple DES to create impenetrable encryption for IoT devices. Yes. Okay. Now, given the very high level of education I know in this audience, most of you probably understand what this means. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I'll tell you, we did not, okay? And most VCs do not. So the reaction that most investors are going to have when you come at them with this sort of high-tech engineering speak is, and we're going to pull out our phones, right? And you're going to be like this. You do not want to be like this. This is not where you want to be when you're pitching to an investor. So what you want to do is figure out how to get to wow. So what I want to do is share with you the secrets to getting to wow, and I want you to apply this to your company. So the keys to getting to wow are the 3 C's. Now, I don't know if they're C's in Georgian or not, but in English, they're the 3 C's. The 3 C's are, first, you have to be clear what you do. You have to be clear what you do. It is stunning to me how often, when I ask an entrepreneur, what are they up to? They like a deer in the headlights, right? I mean, I don't think I'm that intimidating a guy, but, the entrepreneur's reaction when I say, so, tell me about your company, is something to the effect of, well, we use AI and blockchain to restructure data. Okay. So sorry about that, Chris. In any case, okay, so that's not clear enough in terms of exactly what you are doing. Every entrepreneur should have a clear statement about what they're doing that anybody in business can understand. So now, first you've got to be clear. Second C, you've got to be compelling. You've got to say something that is going to cause us to say, wow. Compelling means you're not just a little bit better. You're not just a little bit cheaper. You are dramatically better. You are 10x. You are 1/10. You are 5x in terms of your lifetime. So what do you have that is incredibly compelling, and can you quantify it? Can you make it clear how huge the benefit is for your customers? That's what gets investors excited, that you have a compelling value proposition. Third C. The third C is you got to be credible. So, entrepreneurs can say all sorts of things about their company and their prospects and their future and their financials, but can they say something that we're going to believe? How do you convince us that what you're saying is true? Well, you have evidence. You've got customers. You've got testimonies. You've got something that makes us believe that what you were saying is true. So the 3 C's: be clear, be compelling, be credible. And here's my encouragement to all of you. I don't care what business you're in. I know about half of you are entrepreneurs, and then we have some politicians and some other people in the audience. In every communication that you think of doing, that you do from now on, every communication, apply this filter. Are you clear? Are you compelling? Are you credible? Because that's the key to communication. Are you clear? You connect with the head. Are you compelling? You connect with the heart. Are you credible? You pass the gut check. So think about that, whenever you're doing future communications. If you figure this out, if you figure out what your wow is, you can use it everywhere. Obviously, when you're pitching to investors, but when you're pitching to customers, now it's a little bit different when you're pitching to customers, but when you're schmoozing at events, when you're trying to recruit people to your company, when you're doing press releases on your website, wherever you are at trade shows, you should know your wow. You should have, within 20 seconds, clear, compelling, and credible. 20 seconds, clear, compelling, and credible. And you can use this all over your communications. So now, for a specific framework for your company, 3 steps to getting to wow. First step, what is the sentence that clearly describes your company? So now, sometimes pitch coaches will tell you, it has to be a sentence that your grandmother can understand. And I'm telling you, don't worry about your grandmother. She doesn't have to understand it. That's okay. But it should be at least sort of simple TechCrunch language, right? So the broad population of business should understand it. It cannot be IEEE spectrum engineering geek speak, right? So, what is a clear sentence for your company? Every company should have this sentence. Why don't you have this sentence yet? Now, think of this sentence as the sentence you wish a journalist would use when writing an article about your company. Now, most entrepreneurs, when they have the one single sentence about their company, are going to say something like, we have a curve-jumping, paradigm-shifting, disruptive technology that includes AI and blockchain to change the world, right? Okay. So no journalist is going to publish that sentence, right? So what's the sentence that a journalist will publish? Figure out that sentence for your company and make it easy for people to know exactly what you do and repeat exactly what you do, okay? That's your first sentence. So we're maybe 8 seconds in to your 20-second pitch, right? So, second sentence, what is your compelling benefit? So what is a benefit? What is a benefit? Somebody tell me an example of a benefit. What's a benefit? What's a benefit? What? Making healthy, pardon? Raise standard of living. How much, right? What? Ice cream is a benefit. Great. Thank you, Nick. So a benefit is something of value that I as a customer ideally can measure, but it's something of value that I as a customer certainly can identify as something that I want. Okay? So typically, I ask an engineering team, so what's the compelling benefit for your technology? And I had one team that came back to me and they said, well, we use silicon nitride. Yes! So you all guys appreciate that silicon nitride has a different band gap than silicon carbide, and therefore it has a different application in power electronics, right? Okay. No, nobody understands that. The fact that you use silicon nitride is not a benefit. The fact that they can reduce reduce the power loss in power electronics by 50%, that's a compelling benefit. If you can reduce the power loss by 50%, wow, that's amazing. So figure out what is that wow, what's that amazing, compelling benefit, and who realizes it? Who gets that amazing, compelling benefit? So that's your second sentence. And a way to start this sentence, a way to get this sentence for your company is the big idea behind our company is ... What is the big idea? What's the big idea? Not describing all your features and functions, not describing your technology stack, not describing your material science. What's the big idea? Okay, that's your second sentence. So now maybe you're 15 seconds into your pitch. Third sentence is you've got to make it clear how you're different than the rest of the world. So here's a problem that entrepreneurs had that I did not realize when I was an entrepreneur. So when I was an entrepreneur, I thought my companies were so brilliant, so amazing, so exceptional, so unique, that as soon as I opened my mouth, the investors would fall before me with amazement at the wonders of this startup company. Well, guess what? It turns out, investors have heard thousands and thousands of pitches, and I guarantee you, as soon as you open your mouth, they're going to start thinking about all those other companies they've heard talk about the same thing before. So their brain is spinning, trying to think about what was that company? They came into our office, they had this clever new application, and they may actually be looking at you and smiling and nodding, but their brain is spinning, thinking about all the other companies they've heard of that sound just like you. So you've got to shut that down right up front. You've got to make it clear that you are different from all those other companies, and that you're actually aware there are other companies that sound like you, but you're different. So you have to say something like, unlike the other companies that are using artificial intelligence with the blockchain to restructure data, what we can do that nobody else can do is ... right? Whatever that is. So you've got to then offer some evidence that what you're saying is true. We've demonstrated this because Procter & Gamble searched the world for a technology they could use to improve their data cleanliness, and they picked us as opposed to anybody else. And so I'm going to go, that's impressive, Procter & Gamble, I get it. That's an amazing thing. So 3 sentences, okay? Clear description, what you do better, compelling benefit, get my heart racing, differentiation, make sure that you're credible. Now, this looks like a template, and frankly, I hate templates. I recommend against templates. Entrepreneurs should not use templates because templates were not designed for your company. They were designed for our convenience as investors. So you've got to articulate your story in the way that is most effective. So you don't necessarily have to follow this 1, 2, 3 template, but let me suggest all of you should have the answer to each one of these questions. All of you need the sentence that describes your company. All of you need the sentence that is your compelling value proposition, and all of you need the sentence that is your differentiation. So you need these sentences, but there might be other ways to put this together. There might be another way to get to wow. So one way to get to wow is if you can paint a picture or tell a story in one sentence. Now, a lot of pitch coaches tell you that, when you're pitching, you should tell a story. And that's okay if you have time. If you have time, you can tell a story. But all too often, we get this entrepreneur, they come into our office, and they put up their first slide. Their first slide is a bunch of letters that are hard to pronounce that represent the URL they were able to get, right? So I have no idea what they're talking about. And they say, okay, my name's Bill from Zizigy. And before I tell you about Zizigy, let me tell you a story. When I was a child, my grandfather had a farm. And on my grandfather's farm, there was a pond. And in the afternoon, I would go down to the pond and look across the water, and there were some woods. And I would speculate on how blah, 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 blah. And, the entrepreneur is going nuts at this point. So, there may be an interesting foundational story about your company, but, when you're first meeting an investor, you don't have time to go into it. If, though, you can tell a story in one sentence, then that's okay. So a story in one sentence begins with, imagine if, right? Imagine if you had an application that could pull together all of your messages from the 8, 10, 12 different message sites that you use into one simple messaging platform. That would make your life so much better. By the way, anybody have this app? Has anybody developed this app? I want this app. Don't you all want this app? Don't you need this app? It's insane. So I go around the world painting this picture of this app that will pull in my messages, from Line and LinkedIn and Viber and Messenger and WhatsApp and WeChat and blah, blah, blah. I got, 8 different messaging apps, and I got 5 different email accounts. This is insane. Somebody solve this problem. Okay, please? Okay. So, side story. Okay, back to, imagine if. So tell your story, by painting a picture of what you're doing and how it benefits the world. Imagine if. Another thing you could do is you can use an analogy, So we're the Netflix of ebooks, for example. So now, don't exaggerate. Everybody says they're the Uber of this or the Airbnb of that. Be careful that you don't sort of misrepresent by using an analogy. But if it's truly clarifying, an analogy can be useful. And then a totally different approach is if you've got something amazing, if you've got some amazing name that you can drop, then go ahead and drop it. So my favorite example of this is I happen to be down in New Zealand, and I was a judge for a pitching competition. This woman gets up and says, "Hi, my name is Claudia, and we have special effects software for the entertainment industry. Last year, we won the Academy Award." And then she went on and talked about, her technology, her stack, and all that. At the end, I said, "Claudia, you had me at Academy Award, So, how many people here have won an Academy Award? Yeah, all right. So, okay, I get it. You may not have won an Academy Award yet. I'm confident many of you will at some point, right? So, the counterexample is this team. This team comes into our office, hour-long meeting. The template said the team slide comes at minute 55, the last slide, right? So they put up their team slide, and they say, it turns out on the team slide, one of the founders was a Nobel laureate. And we go, whoa, really? Bill Sharp, Nobel laureate economics, he is one of the founders of this company? Are you kidding me? That's amazing. And they go, yeah. And we said, okay, I get it, but why didn't you tell us at the beginning? They said, well, we wanted to end with a bang. I said, yeah, but if you had told us at the beginning, we would have listened. So if you've got a really big name to drop, then drop it, okay? So that's the work I want you guys to do. I want you all, by the end of today, to come up with your wow, less than, 20 seconds or less. And I don't know, there's a reception tonight or something? Is there a reception tonight? There must be something, right? Okay, all right. So I'll give anyone who wants, I'll give you 20 seconds. I'll give you 20 seconds if you can wow me, all right? All right? Okay, so some other very brief tips. Keep it simple. So here's the important thing. If I give you permission to figure out your wow and you and your partners get together and you write out all these incredible sentences, the way you write is not the way you speak. So humans converse in words that are different than they write. So do not write it all down with all these subordinate clauses and appositives and adjectives, whatever. Come up with natural language that is simple, that I can remember, that everybody can remember. Here is the test. If you can deliver your wow and then ask whoever you spoke to repeat it back to you, it doesn't have to be exact, but if they can give you the gist back, then it's good. But if they can't give you the gist back, then it's too complex, or they're not understanding it, or it doesn't make sense. So you can hone your wow by practicing with fresh ears and seeing, is it simple enough and clear enough that they can remember? So come up with something, practice it. It will evolve over time. But it's got to be simple enough to remember. Second tip, please be customer focused. This applies sort of across all of your communications, especially to investors, but certainly to customers. Too many entrepreneurs are product focused. You're focused on your product because you live and breathe and die every day trying to perfect your product. So what we want, we know you love your product. We know you're focused on your product. But when you're talking to the outside world, you've got to be focused on customers. What value do you bring to your customers? Not how beautiful and clever and elegant is your product, okay? Be customer focused. Third, Please quantify your wow if you can. If you can put a metric of merit on your benefit, that helps. You can't just be a little bit better. We are 10.5 times faster than Oracle or whatever, right? So convince us that you've got some quantifiable benefit that you can deliver. Now, I say one or two numbers because you may have a few different value propositions. But once I told an entrepreneur, please quantify your benefit, and he came back with a sentence that had 8 metrics in it. And I said, okay, wait a second, that's not going to work. So what are the 1 or 2 numbers that you want everybody to walk away with to represent what you're going to achieve? And then last, I think it goes without saying, but don't lie. Now, this should be obvious, but this goes back to my point about entrepreneurs being way, way, way too over-enthusiastic about the likelihood of their success and then possibly misrepresenting. So I'm going to close by quickly sharing with you a list of the top 10 lies of entrepreneurs that we have assembled over the years. So these are things that we hear almost every entrepreneur saying, and it destroys your credibility. So we actually have a much longer list than 10, but I'm going to share with you the 10, and please don't say this, okay? So lie number 1. Lie number 1 is our projections are conservative, right? We're going to reach $576 million in the 3rd year of revenues, and by the way, we think that's conservative. We know it's not conservative. It's baloney. You're never going to hit that number. So I don't care if it's a, incredibly ambitious goal. If you say it's an incredibly ambitious goal, I'm okay with that. But if you tell me it's conservative, get out of my office, okay? Lie number 2, our target market is $56 billion. No, just because you have software for the auto parts market, and the auto parts market is a $56 billion market, does not mean that you have a target market of $56 billion. Entrepreneurs consistently misrepresent their market size. Please tell us a realistic market size for the target market you're going after. Line number 3, we have a world-class team. So I really appreciate that you love your university mate and his cousin, and you are very loyal, and that's great. Okay, yes. But probably right now you do not yet have a world-class team, right? That's okay, So some of the greatest companies in Silicon Valley were created by college dropouts, right? So what we want to know is that you have the ambition to build a world-class team, that you have the ambition to go out and find the best people you can possibly find to help you with your company. Line number 4, our average sales cycle is 90 days, or our typical conversion rate is 25%. So the point here is that most entrepreneurs misunderstand the sales cycle, their conversion rates, how long it's going to take for them to get sales. This is the number 1 reason that entrepreneurs die, is because they miss their numbers, because they did not figure out in their model that it's going to take longer to generate sales than they hoped. So get realistic and continuously test what your sales cycle really looks like. Look at your metrics carefully and monitor them to make sure you have a model that is realistic in terms of what it's going to take to build your revenues. Line number 5, we have no direct competition. So this is an evolution. It used to be entrepreneurs said, we have no competition. But now they've learned, they're savvy, they figured it out. We have no direct competition because nobody else has a blue-colored widget that happens to have 84 sprockets in it. So that does not mean you do not have you do not have competition. Line number 6, no one else can do what we can do. This is sort of the alternative to we have no direct competition. Almost certainly, somebody else can do what you want to do. Somebody else can do what you can do. The question is, do they want to? If they don't want to, who cares? There's not an opportunity there. Line number 7, all we need is 2% of the market, right? And this is, right? Because if your market's $56 billion, 2% of that's $1 billion, right? How hard can it be to get 2%, right? It can't be that hard, right? It shouldn't be. So, okay, line number 8, we'll be cash flow positive in 12 months. Never going to happen. So, line number 9, our deal with Google is going to be signed in 2 weeks because I just met Amrit backstage, and he was really excited about our technology. I have no doubt that, 2 weeks from now, we're going to have a deal with Google. And lie number 10, I'll be happy to turn over the reins to a new CEO. So I understand, there's this thing going around that VCs want to replace entrepreneurs. VCs do not want to replace entrepreneurs. We are not interested in getting rid of our founders because what we know to be true is the most successful companies on the planet are companies where the founders grow with the company and are successful with the company. We know this, but it's not always the case that the founders grow with the company. It's not always the case the founders have the right skill set for the next phase of the company. So sometimes we got to look to bring in, additional talent. We want to know that you're willing to do this. We know you're not going to be happy. We get that. Sometimes entrepreneurs are happy. We know you're not going to be happy, but we want to know that you see this company as something bigger than your personal development experience, right? So those are the top 10 lies of entrepreneurs. I also have available for you free on our website. This is the advertising portion of the program. I did a blog called The Top 10 Terrible, Horrible, Very Bad Slides. So to try to help you with, what you should not be doing on your slide deck. And I'm hoping to come out with the positive side of that sometime soon. And so this is getting to wow, and I want to thank Greg for helping me with the slides. And I want to point you to our website at garage.com. We have a lot of resources on our website for entrepreneurs that, we are happy for you to take advantage of. So with that, I am going to let you all go. Thank you all very much. It's been my delight.